Okay, cool. All right, so let's get started, y'all. So let me turn that. Okay. All right, guys. So it's our study group time. Yay! We're reading The Secret. That's what we're reading. See, The Secret. So what we do during study group is we read the material, and then I will stop and give commentary, depending on what they're talking about. I like to break things down to make it easier for you guys. I also like to spin things in a different way than how it's presented, because sometimes it is presented in a way that doesn't always help you to achieve what you're trying to achieve with it. So that's what I do. So I read the material, we'll stop, make commentary. For those of you tuning in, if you are tuning in for a reading that was in the last hour, this is our study group time, which means we're only doing reading book material. But if those of you who are following along, if you want to follow along, if you want to submit a question regarding the book, regarding the topic, regarding spiritual stuff that we can tie into this, feel free to post your questions in the comment section below. Sorry guys, I'm a little tired today, so if I seem like I'm not 100% as energetic as I'm used to, I'm just tired. So no worries, it's been a long day, so I'm just low on energy at this point. All right, so I'm gonna read, and then we'll discuss this. Okay. All right, so The Secret Made Simple. We live in a universe in which there are laws. Just as there is a law of gravity, if you fall off a building, it doesn't matter. If you're a good person or a bad person, you're going to hit the ground. The law of attraction is a law of nature. It is an impartial and impersonal. It is as impartial and impersonal as the law of gravity is. It is precise and it is exact. Everything that surrounds you right now in your life, including the things you're complaining about, you've attracted. Now I know at first blush that's going to be something that you hate to hear. You're going to immediately say, I didn't attract the car accident. I didn't attract this particular client who gives me a hard time. I didn't particularly attract the debt. And I'm here to be a little bit in your face and say, yes, you did attract it. This is one of the hardest concepts to get, but once you've accepted it, it is life transforming. And it is true. It's true. Every time I go back and think about some of the crazy stuff that I've had to go through, or some of the crap that I had to experience, I can go back, and if I properly assess it, then I can tie in where or when I began to contribute to that event. In other words, in our life, in this form, we all have, there's a plan for each and every one of us. We put the plan together. This is why there's a plan, because we all plan certain experiences as we're in this form. That doesn't mean that experience has to happen in a specific way that is non-changeable. The experience itself is more of a theme. In other words, if your soul decides when it comes into physical body and lives as a person that it wants to have the experience of giving to children, or to offering support or guidance to children, once you get down here, there's a lot of different ways that can play out. There's a lot of different ways your soul can achieve that goal. You can do so through the process of going to school, becoming involved in work, or having a career that has to do with children. It can also be you having too many children yourself and then feeling overly caught up in all of that. It could also be a friend passing away and you inheriting her children. So it can happen in a lot of different ways. And most of us, because we sustain our state of being on a level that is more calibrated to what goes wrong in life versus paying attention to what works in life, or what we can, what we gain from experiences and so forth. Instead of being more positive natured and being more negative natured, what you may encounter is you're still going to have those specific experiences you're meant to have, but they may happen in a very unique way that is not fun and is not enjoyable, and is painful to go through. It could also happen in a very different way as well. So it just depends on what it is that you were trying to gain from an experience, or what experience you're trying to gain, and then how you're actually going to line up with how it's going to come about. So that's, yeah. And here's an example of this for me, as far as how I lined myself up with the car crash, because I actually did line myself with the car crash. So there was one instance, or one situation, where I would drive in my truck. I would get in my truck, and I would always get onto the freeway. And this was back in Houston. And every time I would get near or around this area of the freeway on the side of town to get my exit, I would always think about the cars, because that's where you have to slow down, because if you're not paying attention, you can immediately slam into another vehicle. And so I was always, as I was get on the road to get onto that entrance ramp to the freeway, I would always have the idea, the thought, like, I need to be careful, I don't want to get into an accident. And then I would visualize an accident, or I would visualize like something, and I would make sure I had my seatbelt on. So in the process of trying to prevent myself, or in the process of trying to avoid an accident, because I thought about it enough and I put myself in a feeling state of it, or the experience of it, I was actually drawing it closer to me. So then I got on the freeway, and then I'd get to this spot in the freeway, and I'd always think about, I need to slow down that spot, because that's where accidents happen. And so I did that over several weeks, several months. That was just a thought in my head. And I remember thinking to myself, I need to stop thinking about this as often as I do, because I'm probably going to summon this up. So I need to stop thinking this way. And instead of thinking, I need to do this, because if not, that's going to happen, you're still putting energy into that idea of a wreck. And so instead, I should have been thinking differently, like, I just need to buckle up, it's a safe thing to do, or it's the right thing to do, or I need to be a better driver, I need to be a better driver, I need to be a better driver, I need to be a responsible driver, I need to use my seatbelt. That's a very different perspective, and it doesn't allow you to stop and fixate on a potential wreck. It just it's more of like, I want to focus on this for this reason, not I want to do this to avoid that, but I'm still thinking about that. And so it's just a subtle shift, but it's enough of a shift that it can make a difference. Anyways, a few weeks go by, or a few months go by. No, I think it was like a couple months. I actually think it was a couple months. And I was on the freeway, same spot, and one of the vehicles in front of me, they stopped fairly quickly, and then another one stopped and hit that one, and then another stopped and hit that one. And then I stopped fast in time to not hit the one in front of me, because I stopped so fast, the truck behind me hit me. And so luckily, it wasn't as bad as it could have been, but it definitely was like, oh crap. And then the guy that got out of the truck, he was like, oh man. And I was like, yeah, I know. He's like, I just got into a wreck in this exact same spot 1 month before. And I just went through this whole hassle with the insurance company. And I was like, oh man. And he was like, he's like, you can call it into your insurance. But I don't want to. And it wasn't enough there was like no damage to his vehicle, so he was fine. But I was just like, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna get dinged for his vehicle, and I'm gonna get dinged for, just because when you stop and you get hit from behind, sometimes you still got hit. If you stop that fast, then you're at fault. And that's in Texas. But anyways, and I was like, well, that's interesting that you just got into another accident, so you must be aligned with that energy. It's like I was aligned with this energy as well. But I remember thinking about it, and sure enough, So, going back to this, often when people first hear this part of the second, they recall events in history where masses of lives were lost, and they find it incomprehensible that so many people could have attracted themselves to the event. By the law of attraction, they had to be on the same frequency as the event. It doesn't necessarily mean they thought of that exact event, but the frequency of their thoughts matched the frequency of the event. If people believe they can be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and they have no control over outside circumstances, those thoughts of fear, separation, and powerlessness, if persistent, can attract them to being in the wrong place at the wrong time. You have a choice right now. Do you want to believe that it's just the luck of the draw and bad things can happen to you at any time? Do you want to believe that you can be in the wrong place at the wrong time, that you have no control over circumstances? Or do you want to believe and know that your life experience is in your hands, and that only all good can come into your life because that's the way you think? You have a choice. So that's not reality, people. That only all the good can come into your. This is a human experience. This is a human world. It's human reality. There is no such a thing as only all good. It's not gonna happen here. So they just need to drop that out of the book, because the idea and the philosophy of getting people to buy into this potential that blessings, only blessings, only blessings. Oh, that was a bad thing that happened. I'm going to ignore that and I'm going to pretend that never happened. No, like that happened for a reason. There might be some good in it. So pay attention, because you can probably get something out of that. Could be a positive thing. So that doesn't mean you should ignore or avoid or pretend like bad things don't happen when they do. You need to understand that there's reasons for everything that happens in this world. Even if you set yourself up energetically to have an experience that was not beneficial for you, there's still some good that can come of it. So whether you unintentionally attract something that's a painful experience to go through, or whether you intentionally, knowing like what I did, I knew I was building that up, momentum up, and you draw that situation to you, regardless, that can be used in some way. You can take something from that and use it to your advantage in one way or another, but you have to look deeper beyond the superficial or the surface level experience of pain or suffering. For me, I could have immediately got caught up in like, oh my God, why does this happen to me? My truck, I've gone so long without any wrecks and now I finally wrecked my truck. Or, oh my God, now I have to pay for this and I was worried about my debt this month. And so instead of going into that tailspin of, this is awful, why is the universe doing this to me? Why is God punishing me? Instead, I was like, well, I know I did this because I know what I was doing up to this point. So I'm owning that and I'm going to work on it. And I'm going to use this as a positive. I'm using it as a positive right now. I'm using my painful experience as a way for y'all to look at what y'all are doing and recognize when you're doing something very similar. That's a positive experience. And that's using something as a negative that you can turn into a positive, right? Nothing can come into your experience unless you summon it through persistent thoughts. And it's not just persistent thoughts, remember. It's persistent it's a consistent energy, not persistent, consistent energy. And so when you are thinking, or when you are retaining or practicing a state of mind, a state of being, a state of emotion, a state of expression, when you're practicing this state of something on a regular, consistent basis, you're intentionally creating a charge around that. You're going to pull in experiences that are going to line up with that. That's what's happening there. Bob Doyle. Most of us attract by default. We just think that we don't have any control over it. Our thoughts and feelings are on autopilot, and so everything is brought to us by default. No one would ever deliberately attract anything unwanted without the knowledge of the secret. It is easy to see how some unwanted things may have occurred in your life or other people's lives. It simply came from a lack of awareness of the great creative power of our thoughts. Now, if this is your first time to hear this, it may feel like, oh, I have to monitor my thoughts. This is going to be a lot of work. It will seem like that at first, but that's where the fun begins. Now, that's a tricky part too as well, because when you are going to start to practice positive alignment or alignment with experiences you would prefer to have over ones that you wouldn't, it does take practice. Because if you wake up every day and you are obsessing about your finances, and you go to sleep every day obsessing about your finances, and you have at least 3 or 4 thoughts in that day, or you have 3 or 4 moments where you panic or fear or worry or freak out over finances, then you're definitely creating a state of being around that, meaning that you're definitely going to have things happen that are going to enforce and amplify that state of being. So it's your choice. You can choose to keep doing that. Thinking about your finances and worrying and freaking out isn't going to fix your finances. It really isn't going to do anything for you. It's just a waste of energy. And so I would say, instead of sitting there and worrying and hoping that a miracle comes along and that you are bailed out of your financial troubles, focus on a practical, attainable goal, even if it's one little thing that you can do to move in the direction of having more money and having less debt, having more resources, having less consumption. Any little thing you can do, because in doing that, you're going to feel better. You're going to feel like you're achieving something. And in the process of doing that, that's when you start to be in a place of alignment where you can summon in or pull in experiences that would definitely help you reach your goal faster, or help you to overcome or to overshoot that goal, meaning that you might think you can do only such and such, but then when you actually achieve it, you do way better than you expected. And so that's a strategy. And I always say to people, when you find yourself freaking out or worrying or obsessing, call it obsession, lazy obsession with something that's not working in your life, find something else to focus on, which is why my partner and I call it the law of distraction, because we use the idea of distracting ourselves as a way to stop the cyclical pattern of thinking. So law of distraction, law of distraction, law of distraction. The fun is that where there are many shortcuts to the secret, and you get to choose the shortcuts that work best for you. Read on and you'll see how. It's impossible to monitor every thought we have. Researchers tell us that we have about 60,000 thoughts a day. Can you imagine how exhausted you feel trying to control all 60,000 of those thoughts? Fortunately, there's an easier way, and it's our feelings. Our feelings let us know what we're thinking. The importance of feelings cannot be overstated. Your feelings are your greatest tool to help you to create your life. Your thoughts are the primary cause of everything. Everything else you see and experience in this world is effect, and that includes your feelings. The cause is always your thoughts. The emotions are an incredible gift that we have to let us know what we're thinking. Your feelings tell you very quickly what you're thinking. Think about when your feelings suddenly took a dive. Maybe when you heard some bad news, that feeling in your stomach or solar plexus was instant. So your feelings are an immediate signal for you to know what you are thinking. You want to become aware of how you're feeling and get in tune with how you're feeling, because it is the fastest way for you to know what you're thinking. You have two sets of feelings, good feelings and bad feelings. And you know the difference between the two because one makes you feel good and the other makes you feel bad. It's the depression, it's the anger, it's the resentment, it's the guilt. It's those feelings that don't make you feel empowered. Those are the bad feelings. No one can tell you whether you are feeling good or bad because you are the only one who knows how you're feeling at any time. If you're not sure how you're feeling, just ask yourself, how am I feeling? You can stop and ask this question often during the day, and as you do, you will become more aware of how you're feeling. The most important thing for you to know is that it is impossible to feel bad and at the same time be feeling good thoughts. That would defy the law, because your thoughts cause your feelings. If you are feeling bad, it is because you are thinking thoughts that are making you feel bad. Your thoughts determine your frequency. Your feelings tell you immediately what frequency you are on. When you are feeling bad, you are on the frequency of drawing more bad things to you. The law of attraction must respond by broadcasting back to you more pictures of bad things and things that will make you feel bad. As you feel bad and don't make any effort to change your thoughts and feel better, you are in effect as you feel bad, I'm going to read that because that didn't sound right. As you feel bad and don't make any effort to change your thoughts and feel better, you are in effect saying, bring me more circumstances that will make me feel bad. Bring it on. The flip side is that you have good emotions and good feelings. You know when they come because they make you feel good. Excitement, joy, gratitude, love. Imagine if we could feel that way every day. When you celebrate the good feelings, you'll draw to you more good feelings and things that make you feel good. It's like a repetitive, feel good, feel good, feel good. I mean, calm down, y'all, with the feel goods. Calm down. It's really so simple. What am I attracting right now? Well, how do you feel? I feel good. Well, good. Keep doing that. It is impossible to feel good and at the same time to be having negative thoughts. If you are feeling good and it is because you are thinking good thoughts. You see, you can have whatever you want in your life, no limits. But there's one catch. You have to feel good. And when you think about it, isn't that all you ever want? The law is indeed perfect. So I'm going to stop right there because that's a good stopping place to talk about this a little more. That I don't agree with because I have been able to receive things in my life that didn't require me to feel good. So there are things that I've been able to experience that when I received it, here's an example of this. So, trying to think back to an example because I feel like there's an example that I think would be adequate or perfect for this. There's a situation. Thank you. Yeah. So there was a situation that happened where I had run a red light. I was speeding, and this was years ago. This was like really like a long time ago. But I was speeding, and I had gotten pulled over. And I got a ticket, and it was a expensive ticket, right? And so I was like, oh crap. And so I thought I was gonna have to pay for that ticket, right? And so I was really ready and prepared to have to cover the cost of that ticket. And so I went ahead and submitted the form online because I was gonna pay for it online. I went and submitted the form online, etc. So I had done all these things, and there was a mistake in the ticket that voided it. But I was prepared, but I didn't feel good. I didn't feel good at all. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to pay for this $500. It was expensive. I'm telling you, it was expensive because I was speeding that much. And I was like, okay, well, but I made peace with it. I was like, I make peace. I'm going to have to pay this ticket. This is what it's going to cost me. Let me learn my lesson and stop speeding. And then there was the issue with the ticket itself where, again, it got voided. And so I didn't have to pay for it. But I didn't feel good having to pay for the ticket. I just got to a place of peace about it. But I didn't feel good with that experience. And what I've noticed is that whenever I am having experiences where I may not feel good about what's happening, but I'm okay with it as is, meaning that I'm at peace with it, but I don't feel good about it. The feel good's still there, but I'm at peace and I'm okay with accepting accountability or accepting the cost that it's going to have. Then there have been times where I still receive a positive out of it. I still receive a benefit out of it. I wasn't cheerful. I wasn't happy. I wasn't looking forward to paying that ticket. I didn't even try to make it a positive thing. I was just like, okay. And then I made peace with it, and then this other thing happened instead. And so you can put yourself in situations where if you are going through a negative experience, first of all, whatever you go through, if it is a negative experience or something that's super painful or challenging for you, by default, don't fight it. Like if you can't fix it immediately or rectify it in the moment, don't fight it. Just say, okay, this is what it is. Because the moment that you accept and make peace with the fact that it is what it is, immediately you're no longer pushing up against it. You're no longer creating resistance against that experience. It is when we create resistance, which is when we start to attract more of the same crap, or we start to have a worse experience. So whenever something goes wrong, regardless of the situation, and of course, I'm not talking about when someone passes away, or when someone is hurt, or I'm not talking about those situations, because in those moments, you kind of go insane and you lose yourself in that situation. And that's okay, it's acceptable, you're a human being. I'm talking about when you are thinking that you did a good job with your electric bill and you thought you were going to keep it down, and then all of a sudden you get an extra bill, or the bill comes out way higher than you expected, and you get pissed off because you're like, I've been working to try to get this bill down. Why is it so high? And so in that moment, don't fight it. First of all, call to make sure they didn't make a mistake on your damn bill, because that's just common sense, right? That's just practical sense. But if there ain't no mistakes, that's your bill, that costs that much. Accept it. Embrace it. Okay, this is what it is. I gotta work this out somehow. I will work it out, because I always do, and I always tell myself that. I work it out because I always work it out. I've always been able to work things out. So accept it, embrace it, and then just make peace with how to resolve it in the best way possible. By doing so, you're stopping the resistance. You're stopping the pushing back of it. You're not having an overreaction to that experience, because whenever we overreact to situations and experiences, we amplify that energy and it brings more to it. And so that's why whenever someone's reacting to something so extremely, they tend to attract more of it to themselves. So accept it, embrace it, and then just make peace with the fact that this is what it is. And then by default, even if it was a negative experience, and even if I did have to pay the ticket, I'm not going to add on to that going forward into the future. I'm not going to amplify the energy of having to pay for stuff like that, and I'll own my behavior in all of that. And so that reduces the charge, that reduces the buildup of negativity that you could potentially put out there. It's when you react in a way where you're like, God damn it, motherfucker, I can't. And then you start going off in a tangent, and then you start talking about it obsessively. Then you're passionate about it, and you're telling your friends about how you got screwed over, and then you're going on and on and on and on. People who are constantly complaining and going on and on and on about how they've been screwed in one way or another, or how they've been victimized in one way or another, you are just summoning the worst energy of this world. You are summoning more garbage, and it will come in force, and you continue to perpetuate that. And then you get people who are like, I feel like I'm cursed. Am I cursed? Why am I cursed? Why is this always happening to me? And you'll notice this in families. You have families where they all think the same way, or they operate that same way. They all suffer from the same types of crap. So it's the same thing. And so you want to end that cycle. You want to stop that cycle. And that's why I'm very I'm very self-aware of how I'm reacting to situations, and when I react, and when I feel like I'm overreacting. Because when I'm overreacting, the emotional energy that I'm attaching to that experience is massive, and I know I'm going to bring to me a similar experience. So I really do try not to fight whatever it is that I'm having to go through, and just do the best that I can to get through it. And if I can resolve it, so be it. If I can't, just get through it. Just get through it. And that's a great way to avoid amplifying that negative energy. When something good happens, don't tell yourself, well, I'm waiting for the next shoe to drop, or something. Whenever something good happens, something bad happens. Whenever something good happens, something bad happens. Well, yeah, because you keep telling yourself that, because you keep nullifying, you keep adding negative energy to the positive experience you're having. Why are you doing that? Why are you subjecting yourself to the idea that you can't experience or receive something positive in this world without having to suffer for it? Because you can. And if you operate that way, oh my God, I just got my tax return back. I'm probably going to have bills or something come up. And so as soon as you get your tax return, all of a sudden something comes up that costs just as much, if not more. And you're even worse in the hole than before you got the damn tax return. It's because there's this mindset stuck there where whatever positive comes in my life, something negative will happen to match it or nullify what I go through. Stop with that thinking, and stop supporting that immediate response to a positive happening in your life. If something good happens in your life, revel in it, milk it, run with it. Like, do whatever you can to just get the most out of that situation or out of that experience. And then doing so, you will amplify more of that, and then that will start to come up, and you'll start to reduce the incidence of these other experiences that don't really serve you, and that are not going to I'm trying to hear what I'm hearing. I think with my partner, he's like bringing the trash down. I was like, what does that sound? So you can amplify the good stuff, and you can reduce the bad stuff so that it doesn't continue to happen on a regular basis. Okay. All right. Let me go through some of your questions here. So I want to see what you guys are asking me. Yeah, my partner he was a massive complainer, and he still struggles with that to this day. But it's, and here's another part of this, because when you start to practice trying to stay more optimistic, or just focus on like the positives, what ends up happening is that we end up with situations where we start to resent or regret or feel bad towards the people in our lives who by default that's their nature. But that's just who they are. That's who they are choosing to be. And we try to fix them or change them, or we try to call them out on their complaining nature. And at this point in my life, I don't do that anymore, because I went through a large period where I was doing that a lot, and it didn't really help those people. And in fact, they usually would have slapbacks because they weren't prepared for what they were trying to change in their lives. And so now I do not go in to where I don't belong and offer my 2 cents unless I'm asked first. If I'm asked first, that's one thing. And if I'm asked and I tell you and you don't listen and you don't even utilize what I said, then don't ask me again. I don't want to have to do with it. That's your fault. I already told you what to do. So at that point, that's on you. I ain't wasting my energy. I ain't wasting my time. And so, but you can't force someone to change. If that's their nature, that's their nature. And that's okay. They're allowed to be this way. And, it is harder when you're in a relationship with someone who is a complainer, or who is always looking at the pessimistic stuff in life or the bad stuff in life, and they're programmed that way. It is harder to be in a relationship when you're trying to elevate yourself, but you're also feeling like you're being brought down by other people in trying to be positive. In some cases, you just have to find a balance, and you have to limit how much of that you allow. And if that means calling your partner out, if that means taking a day to go spend with your friends, if that means you just kind of going and doing something away from your partner and giving them a chance to like work through it so that you don't feel like you're being drained and sucked dry from them, so be it. But in some cases, with friendships and people and family and stuff, you just got to cut them out, because they will never change, and they aren't adding any value to your life. And in fact, they're only taking and taking and taking, and they're just happy about you listening to them gripe about everything. And I'm just like, I'm not a freaking, it's one thing when you need to vent because you're going through something. It's another thing when that's the habit. All they do is vent and vent and vent and vent. And at that point, you're validating them by listening to them. You're reinforcing that behavior and that habit. You're enabling them to stay that way. And so if you keep yourself available to them or make yourself available to that behavior, they're just going to keep using it. And so you have to decide whether you want to keep with that or not. And if you don't, then just start to distance yourself a little bit. But with relationships, especially in romantic relationships, it is a little harder because we're not all built the same. So to this day, like my partner and I, we operate very differently. And like whenever I purchase something or I buy something, I'm very like, this is what I choose and it's going to work out no matter what. And if it doesn't work out, I will figure it out, or I will find a way to make it work for me. And if it doesn't, then I'll take the hit, and I'm okay with taking the hit. And that's it. And so I go into all of my stuff like that, but I'm very much an optimistic personality by default. And I try to look at like what's possible. I try to look at the potentials. I try to look at the opportunities in everything. Versus my partner, who he's more like, if something doesn't go right, it breaks up his entire day and it just sends him into a tizzy, and it's hard to recover from that. And that's okay. We operate very differently. And if he's going through a period like that, I try to just like, okay, I'm going to go spend time in my office, or I'm going to go read a book, or I'm going to go for a walk or whatever. And I just will like go and like give him a chance to kind of figure that out in his own way. Just because sometimes I'm there for the venting, sometimes I'm not. And it's one of those situations where this is becoming way too much for myself. I can't sustain it myself, and I need to like take a little bit of a break and go and do something to maintain my energy, maintain my sense of being. And a great way to do it also is to just do an activity that is very therapeutic for you, or do an activity that makes you feel normal. So if I've had a really rough day, things have gone horribly wrong, and I don't want to feel the way I feel, because who wants to feel like that? Who wants to feel crappy? Who wants to feel bad? Who wants to feel like shit? Who wants to feel like that? Nobody wants to feel like that. And so when I've had a day like that where I'm not feeling the greatest, or I'm not feeling amazing, I have to find something to help me stabilize my energy. One of the easiest things that I can do to do so is take a walk here where I live at, because of the scenery. Another thing that I can do to help myself feel this way is just put on Star Trek and watch some of my favorite Star Trek episodes, because that's something that feels very comforting for me. It's like comfort food, but with like shows. Watching Friends, or watching something that'll crack me up or like make me laugh. So watching shows like that or stuff like that, especially comedy is the best way to do it. It'll help you to stay more stable or feel balanced, and then you can start to reclaim your normal state of being, your normal state of existing that is more optimistic, or is more focused on like the good that life has to offer and the opportunities available to us, and so forth. Yeah, well, of course it's going to be hard. We, as kids or as young adults, we're in a world that exists and that is attached to suffrage. Suffering and the physical experience go hand in hand. And so we can't escape suffering here. We can reduce it, minimize it, we can ignore it or imagine it doesn't exist, or try to live in the way where it doesn't exist. But suffering is a part of the game here. So you can't fight the reality of the human experience, but you can lessen your response or your reaction to it in instances. And that's how I would describe it. I think that's my thing. That's what it was. It was my it's because it's a swamp cooler, so it has like the pump. So the pump was like dry. So it's like, oh, that's why it's being out of town. Anyways, so that's what happened. So, you just get yourself back to stable. People try to, like, when they do The Secret, they try to go from like a pissed off moment, like, I'm so pissed off, I'm so angry, I've got to think positive, but I'm going to create all this negative. Like, you'll go drive yourself crazy if you try to operate that way. I don't do that. I'm like, look, I'm pissed right now. I'm angry. I need to find a way to express this energy, because and so if I need to talk it out, I will. But usually I will try to like express it or release it in a different way, either by going on a walk or distracting myself from the feelings. If I need to verbally express myself, then I'll maybe text something or I'll share something. But aside from that, that's it. You know, I'm like, okay, I had my chance to let it out, to release it, to not hold it in some way, shape, or form. Now, do I want to keep feeling this way? Do I want to keep having this experience? Do I want to keep letting this take over my day? Or do I want to get back to what's normal for me? And then that's when I'll start to pivot and I'll focus on things that just make me feel better. Not perfect or amazing, just better. So if it means watching an episode of Star Trek, so be it. If it means getting on and watching funny memes or whatever, or GIFs, so be it. If it means, like looking into reading something that's very like intellectually stimulating, so be it. And then I try not to think back to what I was pissed off about. I try not to like let that reassume or let that start up again in me. Because if I do, then what's happening at that point is it's going to become a pattern. It's going to become a trend, a pattern, and I will start to create more experiences and summon them to me. So I try to like, okay, this is done. I need to like distract myself or pivot. Then once you pivot and you get to like a resting state of I'm okay, like I'm not amazing, I don't feel as bad as I did earlier, but I'm okay. Like I feel okay. Then you can start to work on building yourself back up to just being happy again or just focusing on what makes you feel good in your life. And that's the best way to kind of get back to that level or that state. Cassidy's like, I can't even tell you how much I needed these messages right now, tonight. Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah, there's like, this is like work. Like being in this world and trying to get the most out of it in a positive or optimistic way is work. Unless you were born that way, you're just this chipper person, which I was like that as a kid, as an adult, because when you see enough and you experience enough and you acknowledge the reality of the human being and nature and all this, it ain't easy to just always want to be optimistic or always assume the best. It's not easy. It takes more effort. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't try. It doesn't mean you should give in to your pessimism or to the feelings of like there's just no hope and burn the whole shit down. No, like there's no reason to get to that state, to get to that point. So no. I try not to let myself get to that. Now every now and then you might catch me when I'm in that state and you'll know because I'm going off. Like, oh, Ferny's gone off. He's had it. He's officially had it that day, but it doesn't happen as often because I'm pretty good at like bringing myself off the edge and saying, nope, bringing myself back to just balanced and okay. Okay is better than I feel like shit. So I want to just feel okay. And okay starts off with just, this is what it is. Can I do anything to fix it? No, probably not. This is going to stay this way. Okay. So then what can I do to focus on just feeling a little better than what I was feeling right now by thinking about this? Well, this is what I can do. Okay. And then I feel a little bit better. And then I can distract myself with other things. And then once you start to do that, by default, now that I've done this often enough and this is my normal way of dealing with stuff, by default, as soon as I make that pivot, something changes and I feel so much better and I start to have more positive experiences again. So that's just the way it is with me. So yeah, back to life, back to reality, right? Right? It's just like she said, back to reality. She hit it, girl. She hit it. So awesome. All right. So let's see. I thought of Friends with Pivot too. Yeah. And I needed that statement. Yeah, it's. Thank you for everything you said for a new pivot. Makes me think of Friends. Yeah, pivot. Yeah, that's another way. Pivot. Yeah. And if you have to think of that visual with Ross, they're trying to take up that couch up the stairs and they're like, pivot. Like, if you need to hear that in your head when you're pissed off, I mean, you're so pissed off, like you want to cry, like just find a way to it's hard to pivot when you're in that state. So you just have to release first and then you can pivot. You can work on pivoting. And pivot just to get normal or okay. Don't try to pivot to the extreme opposite. Just pivot to get okay and be like, okay, it's okay. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. You know why it's going to be okay? Because in about an hour, you're going to get a chance to step away. You're going to be able to go for your walk. You know you love your walks. And remember the other day when you were on your walk and Eddie fell or he tripped and it was funny and you were cracking. And then you can like roll yourself into a state of experiencing something that you enjoy, and then you can make that pivot and then you can get back to that positive state. And humor is the best thing. Like, humor is the one thing that can help you through most of the crap that you will find in this world. So humor is, like, in my mind, having a sense of humor about the crap you have to go through is how you will survive it. Because I think that's one of the few things that I can say has helped me tremendously get through some of the hardest, most painful experiences in my life. Is just having a sense of humor and trying to find something funny or looking at the humor in anything. You don't even have to control, Monica's like, you allow your feelings, then learn to control them. I don't like to use the word control, because when you try to think of it as control, it feels like you're forcing something that isn't naturally what it is. And so I don't try to control my emotions. I try to guide my emotions to what I feel or experienced in understanding what will make me feel better, what will help me get there. The idea of controlling something can be really, really hard for us, because it makes it seem like we have to force something into place. By default, by nature, none of us want to suffer. None of us want to feel any kind of suffrage. And so by default, we naturally reach for anything that feels better. The problem is a lot of us don't understand how to reach for something that makes us feel better. A lot of us are taught to either like go face to face with whatever the issue is, or to substitute our desire to release the suffering feeling with a substitute, which in many cases can be food or can be a drug, or can, and granted, if you've had a rough day and you just need to like sit your ass outside and just breathe and have a glass of wine, I'm not judging you. If that's what you need just to get to okay, that's fine. That's fine. Now, when you hit the third or fourth glass of wine, okay, maybe we need to back this up a bit, because, I said a glass of wine. I didn't say go and, prep yourself to chug that whole bottle. Like, just a glass, just to, like, help you through. But that's just to get okay. Not to erase the experience, not to ignore it, not to avoid it, not to numb yourself completely from that. Now, yes, there are times where some people need to go through a numbing experience, because it is such a painful thing to go through. We already go through this naturally. So like when someone loses their loved one, or someone goes through an experience where they just saw something so horrific that they cannot shake it out of their mind, you might need some help to work through that trauma, because that's trauma at that point. That becomes trauma. Trauma is not an easy thing to work through. You can't talk your way through trauma when you're in the midst of it, or you just come out of it. And at the same time, you can't ignore the trauma. It's there. And so some people will need a little bit of extra something just to give themselves a break from the trauma. And if that means you having a glass of wine, that means you having, I don't recommend doing drugs or having, alcohol, but if you need a moment to just give yourself a break because it is that traumatic of an experience, it is okay. You're not being judged. You're not a horrible, evil human being. You're a human being who needs a moment of release, moment of relief. And so once you get that, the next day doesn't mean repeat that and keep numbing yourself. It means, okay, now that you've had a moment, how can you feel better? How can you work on this to feel better? And even if it means detaching yourself from the situation or going on a trip or whatever you need to do. But, try to work towards, and then in some of that, you can start to have more positive experiences or more beneficial ones as well. Okay? Yeah, you can. Yeah, definitely can listen to music. Music is very healing. Music is very, very healing. What I would do sometimes after I broke up with my ex, because I was pissed. I was pissed off because I had fallen in love with this guy, and when we first got in a relationship, I did a lot of things for him. And then in the course of our relationship, we kind of switched roles, where I started off in the relationship kind of on top of my game, and he was in a position of vulnerability. And then in the course of the relationship, I allowed myself to kind of fall to the wayside and be the vulnerable one in an unconstructive way, in a way that was not really doing me any favors, and letting him dominate and control. And tell me how to be and tell me who to be. And so I put myself through it, and I don't blame him. I put myself through it because I chose to stay in that relationship for as long as I did. So after it ended and after all the shit that I went through in that relationship, I was pissed off, and I needed to just, I wanted to hurt someone or hurt myself. No, I didn't want to hurt myself. I was like, I'm not going to give them that benefit of the doubt. But I was pissed. I wanted to beat someone's ass. And there was a lot of anger there. And there's a lot of rage there. And I realized that it was going to eat me up and consume me and turn me into someone that I didn't want to be. And it was causing me to hate people and to resent people. Not just that person, but just people in general. Because that's what a really toxic or really crappy relationship can do to you. And in order to recover myself from that, what I used to do is back then, my sister lived right next to Eleanor Chinsley Park, or Buffalo Bayou Park. And she used to live by there. And so I was staying with her for a bit. I was sleeping on her couch because I didn't have a place. I literally gave up my apartment because of the relationship ending. So I was staying with her for a bit. And every day I would go jogging twice a day. I would go, and I started off with just walking. And what I would do is I would get up, go for a walk. And as I would go for a walk, I would have a visual. I would go through a visualization process. And in the visualization process, I would see within me this red darkness of energy that I know I didn't want to sustain or support. And it felt like pain, but it was pain from that relationship. And I decided I needed to release it. And so I had no way to release it with him. I had no way to release it to anybody else in my life because I didn't want to talk to anybody about it. I was like done. It was like that thing that you don't even want to talk about because just by talking about it, it just pisses you off more. And so, but I needed to release it. So I would go walking and I would visualize the red energy within me just like surging and surging. And then it would come up, and it would come up through my chakra system and then out of me. And then I would envision a gift box, and I'm like, and I would pretend like, and I would talk to this person in my head. I would talk to my ex in my head. You contributed to me feeling this way. I own what I did to put myself through this, but I'm not going to own all the pain and suffering that I'm going through because of you. And so you can have this back. And so I would envision the energy come up within me and then come out, and then I would envision it in a box. And I would close the box, and I would imagine sending him the box in my head. And that was it. Here you go. This is your gift of bullshit. Take it. This is yours. And I would do that. And I did that every single day, twice a day. And I would listen to some of the most powerful music I could think of. And any music that would get me there. There was like Michelle's Branch, like, what is it? Are You Happy Now? That song, that's one of them. I did a lot of Kelly Clarkson songs back in the day. The Meredith Brooks Bitch song is one of my favorites. But all these songs that felt empowering and made me feel like I was super strong and I was going to get through whatever and I was like bulletproof. Like those are the kinds of songs I would listen to. I wouldn't listen to sad songs. I already went through that period where I was just listening to a sad song and break myself down crying and be like, I stopped doing that. I was like, no. I'm done with the crying bit. Like I need to overcome this and move forward because I don't want to take this shit with me. And so I would just go through that every single day, twice a day, while I was walking and then jogging, listening to my music, having my visualizations, and just that's how I put it out there and just released it. Now, granted, what I would recommend that you should do differently than I did, because what I ended up doing is after about a month or two of doing that, I felt fine and released. Like I didn't feel the energy with me anymore. I didn't feel like it was inside of me anymore. I felt okay. And it took me 2 months to get to that point, but I felt okay. However, there was some supernatural stuff that actually happened to my ex when I was done with that process. There's more to the visualizations that I am not going to go into because I ain't trying to empower y'all to like be able to like curse somebody or cause somebody to go through some stuff. But needless to say, he got the presence back in very specific ways that affirmed what I was doing. And I felt awful because I was like, well, I know when you're pissed, you want to hurt the person that pissed you off or hurt you. But now that I think about it in retrospect, I don't want to hurt anybody and I don't want him to be in pain. And so I felt awful. And I had to, that was a very important lesson because it taught me the power of that state of being that I held and what I could achieve with that. but I'm not here to hurt people with it. And I'm not here to create something supernatural that could cause harm in that way. That's not why I'm here. And so I had to learn to kind of reassess the way I do visuals, because I was like, oh my God, I don't want to hurt somebody in the future this way again. Every now and then I still would get pissed off or I'll get mad. And that little Satan inside of me that we all possess, that Satan inside of me was like, like, get him, Ferny. And I was like, no. Pull back, Ferny, because you know your power. You know what you can do. Don't do it. You're not here for that. Don't do it. And I've had to learn to pull myself back from intending that kind of massive amount of energy or that wave to people. So you have to learn and understand this. But just the releasing part, if I had just done it, and what I should have done is, instead of releasing it in the gift box and sending it to my ex, I should have just released it into a trash bag, and then give trash bag to God, and imagine a trash bag being taken to God and letting God deal with it. So that's what I should have done. And now I do that. Now I do that. Now what I try to do is, once I am able to do that, then I actually reverse the energy, meaning that I'm like, okay, I'm no longer going to send out that negative energy or that aggressive, painful energy. And now that I feel released from that moment where I need to release that toxic energy, now I'm going to build up the love within me. And I force myself, because I don't feel like it sometimes, I force myself to intend love to those people. And I imagine hearts coming out of my chest, just all these hearts coming out, and sending it to those people who actually caused me pain, or who caused me to get to the state that I wanted to destroy them because of it. Like, I send them love instead. And so that's been the practice that I've tried to sustain within me in the last few years. And that's what I've been working on. It's not easy. It takes a lot of effort, and you have to go against your rage and your which is wanting to hurt. You hurt me, I'm going to hurt you. You hurt me, I'm going to hurt you. You have to go against that. But the first thing you do is just to come to peace with what's happened, and then you can work on reversing that. If you just try to do it in the moment when you're that angry, at that point, it's like a battle, and you're probably not going to win it. So you kind of have to like learn yourself and figure yourself out in that way. Okay. Miss Tammy, is it different if someone owes you money? When I didn't think of it, she didn't say anything. Now that I'm on her, it's constant calls and excuses. So here's what I'm going to say. One, know the person that you choose to deal with. We all want to look at the positive. We all want to see the good in people. Don't be stupid. We live in the real world and a human reality mixed with people who are duplicitous by nature. We are all duplicitous by nature. Each and every one of us, including myself, has the capacity to be evil incarnate. Don't be stupid. Understand that we are all duplicitous in nature. So first, know who you're dealing with. So meaning, whoever you choose to surround yourself with, whoever you choose to engage with, whoever you choose to deal with in any way, shape, or form, know the energy, recognize the energy, pay attention. That person will probably tell you who you are if you stop seeing them from the lens of what you choose to see or what the potential you believe they have, and instead just see them for who they are. And so choose to see people for who they are and how they actually present themselves, not what you want to believe about them. That's number one. Number two, if you get the red flags and you still choose to accept the individual and accept that they will operate in a way that is inconsistent with their nature, at that point it's your loss, because you entered into that, whether consciously or unconsciously, you entered into that. Let it be a lesson to pay attention to those red flags, those little details and little things that will clue you in to not deal with people like that in the future. Now, granted, yes, sometimes we do not see it coming, and we give someone an opportunity, and we have the positive, we have the idea that they're going to do what they're supposed to do, and there are no red flags, right? And I will say this, every single time I've made that mistake, I think back and there are plenty of red flags. I just choose not to see them. But let's just hypothetically say that you didn't know anything that this person would be this way. If they are not accountable and you can't do anything to hold them accountable, you need to accept the hit, because it's going to piss you off, make you into a bitter person, and you're never going to want to trust anyone again. And you don't want to get to that point. You don't want to become that person. So you need to allow yourself to accept the fact that you made a mistake and learn from it, and don't do it again. You do it again, and you shouldn't, because when you see this person is had a profound impact on your energy and on your mindset, you should already start to recognize these little details about them. And if you meet someone in the future who reminds you of them, immediately associate the energy, because that is your red flag. Their energy is like that person's energy. There's similarities there. There's things that are showing you who this person is before you've really gotten a chance to meet them. Accept it. It may sound like a prejudgment. I don't give a damn, but it's better to err in the side of caution than to err in the side of blind faith and trust that is not warranted or is not deserved. So something to learn, and we all have to do that. And that's the thing, even with relationships. When you've dated someone and you've had enough experiences with that kind of personality, if you encounter that type of energy again in any shape, way, or form, even if it's the way that they freaking slurp their soup, oh my God, that reminds me of my, like, immediately recognize the energy. And I would just really take heed and caution and realize that you might be dealing with the same situation, and then you'll repeat the cycle. And you can stop the cycle from happening at that point by acknowledging, recognizing, and then putting a stop to it in that moment. Yeah, so Stardust, Sarah Stardust. So, I feel like when I'm excited and anticipating something, then something bad happens that prevents it from coming to fruition. So I tend to not get excited and just think if it happens, it happens. That could just be something unique to you, because sometimes, and I notice this because I notice this with some people as well, whenever, and I notice this within myself with just specific things, not across the board, but with specific things. If it's something that has to deal with, here's an example of this. This was years ago. Years ago, I had production companies talking to me, trying to figure out if they wanted to do a show. And so I had to do all of these like readings and all this other stuff. And I'd work myself into a frenzy of getting excited. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm finally going to make it. And this is years ago. I don't give a damn at this point. Like, I don't care. It's not really a focus for me. My focus is not to be on TV or to be famous. My focus is to help people and open my mouth as loud as I can so that people can hear what I have to say and use it to their advantage. That's my goal. So I don't give a damn if I'm on TV or not. It doesn't matter to me. I'm on TV now. I'm on the screen now. You're watching me. So it doesn't matter. But back then, a lot of psychics, a lot of people like myself who we see what we can do, and we consider ourselves to be unique or special or important, and more important in some ways, shapes, or forms. We see a TV and we see being on TV and, being, I'm going to be rich, or I'm going to be famous, or I'm going to be, and so that's the mindset. And so for a while, I was excited every single time an opportunity would come up where I could be on TV, or I could do this, or I could do that. And I would build myself up into a frenzy, and I would do it, and then they would end up going with somebody else, and they would go with somebody else. And granted, this was in the earlier part of my career, because I've changed a lot since then, and I've evolved and refined myself a lot since then. But this was when I was still struggling with confidence. This is still struggling with trying to establish myself in this field. So I would get excited, and then the opportunity would come, and then I would hear nothing back. And it happened several times, and I was like, and I thought, like, are you punishing me? Why? And because I didn't know any better, right? I was still figuring things out. So once I stopped with the bullshit, and they're just like, Ferny, like, why do you want to be on TV? Like, why do you want to be? I'm like, well, because I want people to see me, and I want people to see how far I've come and what I've been able to achieve despite all the people who were talking trash about me, or all the people who were putting me in a box of like, oh, poor Ferny, he doesn't have a father and his mother's crazy. Like, I was trying to show something or impress others or make a point about my value and worth. That's what that was about. Nothing to do with being on TV. And so once I started to realize why I cared so much about it, it didn't matter to me as much anymore. It did not matter. And I just gave it up and said, no, like, it's not important. That's not important. Why are you doing this? Why are you really doing this, Ferny? Well, because I want to help people. Are you sure? Because you really are obsessed with wanting to be on TV. Well, no, like, I want to help people. Okay, well then focus on helping people. You don't need to be on TV to help people. You don't need to have this like certain, look and brand and what. Just help people. Just focus on that. And as I got more comfortable with just focusing on what I really wanted to do, and instead of obsessing over these things that could happen that validate our worth and value, it wasn't important for me, and I let it go. Since then, I've actually been invited. I didn't even have to do interviews. I have just been invited on television several times, and I said no. Because each time I was invited, it had to do with an area of work that I don't care to do a lot more of. Like, oh, we want you to be on this paranormal show. Oh, we want you to be on Telemundo to talk about this new movie coming out and The Possession and all that other stuff. Like, and it was invitation. Like a reporter from Houston, twice reporters from Houston, like, hey, we want you to be on the news segment for 5:00. We have to do it today, So it was there and available really fast. And I didn't like the feeling that I had when I was being asked, because I'm like, well, I don't deal with possession. That's not my area of work. That's not what I focus on. My job and focus is on mediumship or on psychic development or on spiritual, growth. That's my work. I don't need to do that. And so I said no. With the reporter who wanted me to drop everything on a whim just to accommodate him, and wasn't really trying to be polite about it, I was like, no, I'm not interested. Thanks, but I'm not interested. Hope you find somebody. But I said no. I said no several times. And I'm okay with it, and it's fine. And I actually, not only did I say no, I referred them to people who I know in this industry who I don't like, but I know they would benefit from that opportunity because that is their area of work. And in this industry, I have met other psychics who I don't really care for, or who are just messy people. And I distance myself because I'm like, I don't want nothing to do with you. You're crazy. And I don't want to be caught up in your own drama. But when these opportunities came up, I actually referred these opportunities to these people. And they actually got a chance to be on television and were able to use it for their business. And they didn't tell me thank you right away. They emailed me months after. I just want to say thank you for sending them my way, and for saying no to the opportunity, and for giving me a chance to say yes to it, And I was like, well, I don't want you to suffer. I don't want you to do badly. It's okay. Like, I don't have to like you. I don't have to be in your life, but I'm not trying to hurt you. And if this is an opportunity that you can benefit from, here, have the opportunity, go for it, girl. And so that's that shift. And so you shift the way that you feel about people. You shift the way you feel about opportunities. And you become much more intentional with the work you're doing and with what you're going to spend your day and every moment of your day focused on. You become more intentional. That's the thing, is be intentional with your experience every day, and you will benefit greatly, because you will start to not control, but you will start to guide yourself in a consistent way of being that becomes a norm, so that when it's not that way, that's when you struggle more, because you're so used to things being okay. And that's where I'm at now. I'm okay. I used to things being okay. So it's harder actually when something's not going as well, because it's such a shock to what I'm used to these days. But I don't fight it. I'm like, okay, what I gotta do. And then I just try to roll with it as best as I can. Okay. All right, guys, I'm done because I got to get to my walks and stuff. So I love you all, and I will be back next week for our usual study groups.